Hi, I'm Nathan from Serious Geeks, and this latest Tactica is going to cover the Suppressor squad for Codex Space Marines. What with the competitive scene being completely dominated by Drukhari right now, and to a slightly lesser extent with Harlequins, and probably going to be Eldari in the future when they get a Codex, the weapon system of a Suppressor squad is ideally suited to combat them. Let's have a dive in looking at their stat line. It's a unit that has to be taken in a unit of 3, 2 squad members and a suppressor sergeant. They have a movement of 12, which is common to all jump pack infantry in the Space Marine Codex, so it's a very good amount. This unit can leap around cover and provide firepower wherever you need them to be. They do have the standard stat line of weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, and they have a strength of 4 and toughness of 4. Very standard for Space Marines. They also have 2 wounds apiece and 2 attacks, being Primaris, and they have a leadership of 7 and a 3+ armor save. In common with all Space Marine squads, they have a sergeant who has an additional attack and an additional pip on his leadership. So in essence, they are intercessors who can fly around on a jump pack. That's pretty much it really. They are standard Space Marine intercessors with a jump pack. Now, the armament of the unit is a bolt pistol, frag and crack grenades. You're very rarely going to use the frag and crack grenades, if ever. Bolt pistol, there is an outside chance you might use it, but also very unlikely. And they have the accelerator autocannon each. This weapon system has a range of 48. It's heavy 3, strength 7, -1 AP, and 2 damage. Immediately, you can see it's better than an autocannon. Most autocannons have 2 attacks each. This one has 3, so it's already getting more shots than a standard autocannon unit. A unit of 3 of these bad boys has 9 shots, so that's not too bad. That's actually going to do a bit of work on most light vehicles. Things like Orc trucks or Orc buggies, all the different types of ones they have, or perhaps Drukhari raiders, which is going to be quite a difficult proposition for Space Marine armies at the moment. With this weapon system, you're going to be throwing a fistful of dice that are all going to be strength 7 and do 2 damage apiece. Obviously in the heavy doctrine there'll be AP -2, but you can't really rely on that. Of course there are stratagems that can affect that, and we'll talk about that later. This unit is your go-to unit for taking out light vehicles. The good thing about this unit is it has a lot of utility. You can hurt larger vehicles, even tanks, with the sheer amount of shots you're firing that will all damage too. And the same goes for heavy infantry. Elite infantry, they're going to suffer a lot of damage from that damage 2 stat line. And every armor save they fail is going to cause problems. Now, moving on to the abilities, they obviously have Angels of Death, Death from Above, which means that they can drop in where they need to be. With their range, you're probably never going to do that, but it's nice always to have that option. They also have Suppressing Fire. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack with an accelerator autocannon against an enemy infantry unit, if a hit is scored, the enemy cannot fire Overwatch this turn. It depends on what you're attacking. If you come up against a large mob of Orc boys, you might want to stop them from being able to fire on their Overwatch shots if they're coming at you. Tau, potentially, there could be utility there depending on what happens with their new codex. But it's a nice extra ability, but I wouldn't rely on it too much, because Overwatch it depends on what you're playing in the game, and it has to be an infantry unit. It can't suppress, say, a Land Raider Redeemer, which would be ideal. So yeah, it's a good, nice little utility ability, but it's not going to break the game. Finally, the faction keywords. We've got Imperium, Adeptus Astartes Chapter, which is kind of standard. Keywords, Infantry, Core, which is nice to get the rerolls and benefits from characters. Primaris, Fly, Jump Pack, which is kind of standard if you've got Fly. Smokescreen, and Suppressor Squad. So standouts there is Fly, Jump Pack, Smokescreen, and Core. It means that there's a bit of utility with some of the stratagems that are involved. Not all of them are relevant. I mean, Gene Wrought Might for Primaris, I'm not even going to go over because they shouldn't be charging into people. Okay, there's an option to use it, but if they're fighting people in close combat, then you've got a problem. That's not their role at all, and they've not got enough attacks to make it count anyway. So, on the basis of Core, we know that they're going to get their rerolls. They're a backline kind of unit that will float around taking shots at what it needs to. They've got the fast speed to be able to do so. However, who is going to be giving them the benefit of the rerolls and character support? Pretty much a firstborn character with a jump pack and keep track, same kind of bike, but Those sort of units are often supporting a mainline attack force. It depends on your army build. You might be taking a bit of a more gunline approach. You might have these units, one or two of them, floating around behind your actual backfield, have a captain nearby, and then in that case, it's going to be great to get the rerolls from the captain. On that basis, like we say, a captain is probably the primary unit that's going to benefit this squad. Lieutenants obviously will help as well in that they can give a reroll 1 to the wound. Chaplain might be able to get Catechism of Fire off, but that's probably not going to be their ideal targets because they've got to be the closest target to them. But then the Recitation of Focus can potentially give them +1 to hit if they're close enough to benefit from it. So if you have a chaplain nearby, they will help out a suppressor squad. Looking at the stratagems that are probably going to benefit this unit the most, as always, transhuman physiology is always there if you need to keep this unit alive. They might be on an objective, who knows what's happening. That option is still available and it's always something to consider. As I mentioned, there's not a lot of stratagems that are going to help this unit out. Hammer of Wrath and Gene Water Mike, they don't really help this unit because they're too small. They're not really supposed to be in melee. It's going to hurt you if you put them there. However, there are some interesting stratagems they can utilise. Unless you're Ultramarines, Steady Advance could be handy. It means that you're not going to have to worry about firing and countering its moving. They are still heavy weapons, so if you don't want the minus to hit and you want to keep mobile, pop this stratagem, Steady Advance, and the Adeptus Astartes infantry you've chosen, i.e. the Suppressor squad, will count as not moved. In a similar way, and probably a better use of the chapter core, you've got Adaptive Strategy. It means that the unit can count as being in Devastator, Tactical and Assault Doctrine, all for the same turn. That is going to be very handy for these guys because it puts them on their Accelerator cannons on AP -2. All of a sudden, outside the Devastator Doctrine, they're going to be causing a lot of problems. And it also helps people like the Iron Hands, who will now, in a Devastator Doctrine, not count the penalty for them moving and firing their weapons. Ultramarines, they might be in the Assault Doctrine, they count as being in the Tactical Doctrine, and therefore they don't suffer the penalty for moving and firing their weapons. This is a very good benefit for both those type of armies. For 2 command points, you can use Auspex Scan, which is a nice little way of getting a free shooting phase off on someone who's dropped in quite close to you. 9 shots from a Suppressor squad, all strength 7, -1 AP, 2 damage, could cause a few problems, something to consider if they're nearby. Lastly, we have Smokescreen, which is a nice little way to keep them going for a little bit longer. They have a -1 to the attacks that come at them, so essentially giving them a little bit of protection that they wouldn't have otherwise. It's useful for vehicles. Firstborn vehicles in particular have access to Smokescreen, but it's not something you want to ignore if you want to keep your Suppressor squad active. And if you don't have any vehicles to benefit anyway, pop it on these guys and they've got a better chance of staying alive. So that's the kind of combinations you can do with the unit. Basically, you want to emphasise their main role. It's going to be fire support for your main attack and for your troops choices that flit around cover where needed and put a lot of damage on the ideal targets. We have seen these units absolutely destroy Drukhari armies, and there's been an Ultramarines army that has actually won using 3 such units, but that's a very specific kind of build you might be going for. You don't know you're going to come against Drukhari, but 1 or 2 units can be very useful, and they're only 100 points each, so they're not too bad an investment. On that basis, I would recommend taking these if you wanted a bit of a take all comers option that can hold objectives, move around the back line, move to where it needs to be and put a bit of fire down table. But it's not an essential unit unless you really are going into an environment where you might fight a load of light vehicles that could cause you problems. Overall, I think 1 unit in most armies will fit in, no matter what kind of army build you've got, and on that basis, I would recommend this unit. They get my seal of approval, or the seal of oath as an Ultramarines player. Anyway, that's it for me. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Catch you all soon. Like and subscribe. Peace out.